Welcome to the Remind Podcast, the podcast where we get inside the real estate entrepreneur's mind. My name is Harrison Smith. I'm the Director of Growth with Otea Group, based here in Maine and expanding throughout New England. And I'm joined today by John Moscillo, who many of you may know as Johnny Mo. Welcome, Johnny Mo.
What's happening? Thank you for having me.
Yeah, how we doing?
I can't complain. I just wish it was summer out again.
Agreed. So many people will be familiar with you. They've run across you on Facebook or Lab Code Agents or through the various video things that you do. But for those that aren't familiar, can you tell people a little bit about who Johnny Mo is and what you're doing?
Sure. So Johnny Mo really started in about 2016. It's a brand. I just go by that now because I was training in a market center in Bedford, New Hampshire, Market Center 538. And somebody yelled down the hall, Johnny Mo! And that's how he was born. And so that was Johnny Mo. And that took me down the path of more GCI, collaborated all the way up to the top of KW with that methodology, did a lot of things out on my own with that, coaching, training, those kind of things, built an application, and I was able to exit that in 2019. During my training, my venture into training and helping agents out, I met some pretty cool people in the industry, and it came on to me about how important video was back in 2016.
Mm-hmm.
And so I started to head down that direction of what is encompassed in that, because my past, I come from the tech world. In the 90s, I was a network engineer in the .com world. So I was around the growth of the internet, the platforms and those types of things. And when social media came out, 2013, 2006, 2012, 2016, right? These different platforms started to come out. And the direction that we're going with video, it became clear to me that we have to do that. And what I realized is it doesn't matter whether you're talking about cold calling, networking, or making video. Real estate agents are reluctant to do it, or they're pressed for time, or they don't have the structure in place, the disciplines in place to be able to effectively do it. So I put a system together to be able to help them with that, give them not everything. I say be you, but we created a system to follow, which helps you to get into the communities and network with other business owners. So we put that together, we systematize it, we handle the editing for that as well. I recently relicensed myself. I was originally licensed in 2003, crushed it, got out, let my license lapse. I think it was about 2018 or 19, because I was going full time. But I said, you know what? I want to expand into other areas. I need to prove my concept to other people from my perspective. I didn't have a license, so I'm starting all fresh over. So I got licensed in Maine because my life has taken me more into that direction from New Hampshire. But I also reactivated New Hampshire, and I joined this little group you might have heard of, the Otea Group. Oh yeah, you run them.
Familiar with them.
Right, because I didn't want to, couple things, I didn't want to open up in a new market and just be completely new and say, what do I do? And being in the business for 20 years and, all the businesses and such, I understand the power and the importance of leverage of other people. And so I can just focus on my craft, and other people do what they're good at, which I don't like to do. So yeah, I got to explore my town going on, and that we got partners from Anchorage, Alaska to Portland, Oregon to Portland, Maine, all the way down to Florida and everywhere in between. And the real estate stuff, it's really important to have that in my background too, because the videos I'm doing will generate leads and drive traffic to websites. So yeah, be licensed, do that.
Yeah, absolutely makes sense to be able to actually, when people reach out, be able to actually help them versus, sorry, I gave you some cool videos, but I got to give it to somebody else.
Can't get a referral if you're not licensed.
That's very true. So to back up a little bit, we'll come back to Explore My Town in a minute, but to back up a little bit,
Sure.
You mentioned IT. So as we found, most people don't start in real estate. We all seem to gravitate towards real estate at some point in our career. We realized there's infinite opportunity here. So where did you start, and what ultimately brought you into real estate?
So I've always been entrepreneurial. My mother owned a small business. I worked for her. I started my own business, doing overnight delivery, not overnight deliveries, but the stuff that couldn't make the trucks on UPS because their logistics are too big.
Mm-hmm.
I was able to exit that in like 1996, 1995, put myself through school, got into the .com world. And I was originally started in the help desk in the lab, building computers. And I progressed all the way up to the networking department, where at the end, I worked for a company called CMGI. We had 150 companies under our umbrella. worldwide. We had about 7,500 employees that we had to make sure that all the connectivity was happening and secure. And I was one of 5 or 6 people in the mothership at CMGI in Andover, Mass, that ensured that happened. We found out in 2001 that the dot-com bubble was bursting. And so everybody had to scatter in different directions. And the thing was, my job, I was going to take about a 50% pay cut because there were just too many people, not enough jobs. So people that were overqualified were getting my job, and I would have had to bump down the scale as well. And I said, I've always wanted to do my own thing. I kind of like sales. I'm too stubborn to really be a good employee. So I got into I knew I had a year. They kept me on for a year. So I studied, got my real estate license. I got my severance package, and I came out of the gate running.
Awesome. So interesting where that entrepreneurial spirit starts early, kind of carries on. And then many of us, as you mentioned, just become bad employees. Like we can't be employees anymore. We've got to go somewhere else where we can really expand and do our thing. And that is a big pull to get into the space.
Sure. It really is. And I think that comes with a certain level of self-awareness too, right? And being true to yourself. And that doesn't always happen. It's a journey, right? It's a journey that you have to go through. And there's acceptance that has to come with it and everything. But I think once you really truly understand what you just said, and come to that realization that, okay, I'm unemployable, or I don't want to be stuck in a 9 to 5 Monday through Friday, or, I want unlimited opportunity, or in my case, I'm a creative person. I just want to create, right? What can I create to help people? So, I think that self-awareness is important.
Yeah, I would agree. And I can speak from my own experience. I was on a corporate track and doing my thing. And then I began to feel this gnawing in my stomach, this pit in my stomach, that it's just something wasn't right. And I found that I more and more just resented having to go to work every day to work on somebody else's empire or work on somebody else's goals and deliver what they wanted. And I realized that in all that, you kind of lose yourself. You spend all your time working on the goals of the company and the ownership group of that company, and you kind of forget what you wanted along the way. And I had a really tough reckoning there with having to get to a point where it became untenable. I couldn't do it anymore, and I had to make that move. And real estate was something that I always had my eye on, and I finally made the leap and never looked back, and was never happier by finally being able to get out there and do what was important to me, not what was important to somebody else. So let's talk a little bit about Explore My Town. So you were a top producing agent for many years. You lived through all the REO craziness, and you had a really nice real estate business. And then you stepped away from the sales aspect to go into coaching, training, and then ultimately Explore My Town with video. What pulled you away from production, where you could live a really great life, into this training, coaching, video side?
What I'm about to say is my own personal beliefs, choices, experiences. So I don't want this to come across as advice for anybody else. Everybody's got to find their own way, their own niche. And I remember being at Keller Williams and seeing a diagram that had all these different tentacles on it, if you would, that, what are the opportunities that exist? You can become a team leader, you can become an OP, you can do, right? I think, the diagram I might be referencing. And so I was just like, well, I don't want to be a team leader. I don't necessarily want to be any of these other things that they had in there. So for Explore My Town, it was just, I got burnt out with the sales, and understand that what was going on at the same time was 2006. We filed for divorce. 2007, we got divorced. So now my expenses went up personally, and that's just the way that goes when you're the breadwinner. So my expenses went up dramatically, but the market crashed. So I had about a 40 to 50% decrease in my pay. So I got stuck down the toilet. And during this time, it was a struggle to stay ahead, right? It took literally a decade to be able to breathe again, from the market crash and everything else. So Explore My Town was a way for me to, more GCI than Explore My Town, was a way for me to heal. And it was a way for me to detach, because 2000, I did REOs. I was an REO listing agent, approved for that with several banks, and I crushed it. And when the market started to turn around, first, it doesn't just go from here to here. It gets flat first.
Right.
And so 2000 2011, 2012, 2013, it was pretty flat. That's where I started to develop more GCI, and I was going around the country, work with team leaders around the country, and we're making great progress with that. Um, but I wasn't able to keep the company evolving. Very cash heavy. I didn't know what I was doing, and to develop apps isn't a cheap endeavor, especially not
No.
then. Now it's a different world, but back then the technologies didn't exist. And so I knew I needed to do something creative. I knew I didn't want to get back into selling, because the truth of the matter is, as somebody that was a Hall of Fame real estate agent with Remax, somebody that was constantly getting the letters from Keller Williams, New England, saying, congratulations, you're in the top 10 for this, that, or the other thing. I was flat broke, and I owed the IRS $100,000. Right. So this was all
Mhm.
at that point. Why I say 2016, it's probably more like 2018, I could actually breathe again. Right. Just for a second. And so I was able to lose myself in the work, and maybe it was denial. Maybe it was something else, but I realized that I grew intolerable of, um, the phone ringing, grew intolerable of getting screwed over because, oh, we went with this agent, or, oh, we're
Mhm.
listed over here, or whatever the situation was. And at this time, I was just trying to be a good version of myself for my children, because at this point they were probably in their early teens, mid teens, high school, that kind of thing. And I realized that all the money in the world will never get me this time back. So I was able to focus on all these other things, be creative, do the stuff that I enjoyed, while I was there for my greatest asset, my greatest creation, which was my children.
No, it makes a lot of sense. So, what about video was really the driver to where you ended up? Coaching and training is great. Those are great businesses. They can be very
Yeah.
lucrative. They provide a great platform, but you even evolved further, getting into video production, and then getting away almost from the coaching and training and turning into more of a helper or a resource to the industry. So why make
Mhm.
that change to go deep into video?
Um, I saw the need, and I can't say that I'm a visionary. Right? I don't want to say that I was a
Hmm.
visionary. In 2016, I had the privilege to speak at a Remax event in Boston. It was Remax Integra, largest franchise owner for Remax at the time. And they brought this dude in from next to Vancouver, British Columbia there, Michael Thorne is just an amazing dynamic person. And I didn't know him, and I saw he was speaking, and they were saying that he was going to talk on it. So I researched all the speakers. Nathan Dart was there too, and he was amazing. And he's from like Maryland, or I think Maryland. So I said, Michael, can we sit down and can I buy you lunch? He said, yeah, on this day. So we sat and you ever have one of those conversations? I think you and I have them often where, you think you plan an hour, but it goes 4 hours and it feels like 15 minutes.
Yep, absolutely
And
love
so
them.
right. And so Michael told me that him and his team was pretty much like two or three admin people, maybe a buyer's agent, to sell 300 to 400 houses a year. He can't go anywhere without people, his wife, even he told me, my wife doesn't even let me go shopping with her anymore because, it takes us 4 hours because everybody's like, oh, hey, because he had a community page. He did Facebook Live. He made great video. And I said, everybody should be doing this, right? Everybody should be doing it. So I started to do it. I started to train and coach on it a little bit, say, hey, do this. I started to do pop-ups, and I started to get great results from it. And people reaching out to me saying, hey, I see your video. Or when I went and met with people, they'd be like, hey, I see your video. It wasn't until 2022 when I learned the term parasocial, what a parasocial relationship is. And that's where they're getting to know you. You don't know they exist, but they're getting to know you.
Right.
And so I realized, well, we got to go all in here because we're starting to see, and I don't want to be out there on the streets anymore. How can I build this national thing? And I will say this from a business perspective and a national perspective. Always what's gone through my mind is, how can I build something that gives me $29 a month from 1,000 people, right? That doesn't require a lot of hands-on, or that I'm able to leverage. In 2000 and somewhere along the line, maybe 18, 16, 17, I was mentored by this guy, Fred Newcomb. Fred Newcomb is a Wall Street wizard. And he introduced me to Kevin Harrington from the Shark Tank while we're at this investor camp. And Kevin Harrington said, if you can take anything away from our meeting today, he goes, leverage, master leverage. He says, I used to have 300 employees. I forget the number exactly, but it was like 300 employees. And now I have like 30 because I can farm everything else out. I don't have to
Right.
have a full-time employee. I only pay for the work. And if I don't like the work, I can just move it to somebody else. I don't have any of those other hinges. So I've always looking, how can I leverage? And being in the trenches as a real estate agent, I know how taxing it is. We're being pulled in 37 different directions all day, right? In
Hmm.
all these different ways. And along the way, I created a set of principles called UPAD, understand, plan, action, and discipline. That overlays with Michael Gerber's 3 tiers of business, which is the entrepreneur, manager, and the technician. And what I realized is most real estate agents are operating as the technician of their business, not as the manager. And I said, how can I bring this accountability into their business? So just like coaching or just like a transaction coordinator or just like anything else that you leverage out, we started to explore my town in there. But then at the same time, coming from the training and coaching background, I knew we needed a system. I knew we needed something for them to follow, checklists, ideas. That way they could constantly stay in action without thinking about it.
Yeah. And that leverage concept is one we talk about a lot, especially on the team building front. We meet a lot of people that are either starting a team or have started a team, and they're still trying to do pretty much everything. And we refer to that kind of that doctor nurse model of how you run like a doctor's office. When we call the doctor's office, we don't expect the doctor to take the call. We don't expect the doctor to check us in, the doctor to check us out, the doctor to do anything but see us, give us their expert advice, and then hand us off to the next person in the process. And for some reason in real estate, we don't see that lesson stick. We see a lot of agents, to your point, that are the technician at the start. Even after they start a team, they remain a technician and never take advantage of building that world around them so they can focus on the things that work best for them, the things that actually make the money, the things they even like, and taking advantage of getting all the other stuff off their plate so they can stay super focused, which creates a lot of growth and opportunity for not only them, but everybody around them.
100%. And at some point, you have to look at the work that you do. I talk about this in my training. I don't know if this is a Gerber concept or not. But why do $20 an hour work
Mhm.
when your money making activity pays you $100, right? I saw somebody the other day posting about, oh my God, it's 11 o'clock at night, da 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 da, and I'm just getting done placing ads. And I'm like, well, you got little kids at home. You should be spending time with the little kids. And that ad should be going out to somebody else. And somebody
Right.
commented, this is the number one most important thing about your business. Why would you farm that out to somebody else? I said, no, your number one most important thing is customer retention, right?
Absolutely.
Customer satisfaction, getting referrals, all that stuff is then anybody can run the ad,
Right.
to be qualified. And there's plenty of companies out there that you can have a contract with that will run that ad. I think it comes down to people aren't versed in delegation. They're versed in abdication.
Or they're a solo performer that either can't get out of that because they don't want to. They are a control freak of sorts, or, nobody does it like them. We hear that a lot. Or this industry does a terrible job at showing people how to leverage. They tell people all about leverage, but don't show them how to. And that's a hard lesson when you've been all by yourself for a number of years and you're used to being the person in the middle of it all. And I read a great book. It was called Who Not How, because it's one of the things that I think we all fall into, which is we feel like we're the best person to do it, so we're going to do it. And then we get stuck in that trap of always being the only person on our team that's doing all the work because we just can't let it go.
100%. And not only you can't let it go, I think part of not letting it go is you haven't defined what it is that you want, right? That
Yep.
you just stay in this cycle of rinse and repeat, where that's where SOPs come in. It's like, this is how I want it done. How can you ever hire an ISA? How can you ever hire a virtual assistant of any sort if you can't explain clearly what it is that you want and walk them through it, right? And there's
Yep.
plenty of tools out there now. There's no reason, there's no excuse that you can't make a quick Zoom to say, this is how I want it entered. This is how I want the email to go out. This is how I want the call, right?
Mhm.
There's no excuse. Did I say Zoom? I meant Loom.
Yeah.
If I didn't say Loom, right? There's plenty of screen recording things. There's some
Tons.
other system out there that I just shared with one of my people. And it's like, listen, you just go through this and it makes the template for you, right? So I think a lot of us get to that point that aren't versed. I had to learn the hard way,
Mhm.
but I think people aren't versed in the power of delegation.
Yep.
And delegation, listen, delegation is an internal trust thing.
It
right?
is.
You have to let go. In order to let go, you have to trust that you've done a good job
Hmm.
at hiring the right person, but also explaining to that person in a clear, defined manner what it is that you want, right? And
Yeah.
how it's going to happen. It's your system,
Yeah.
right?
100%.
This is how it's going to happen.
Yeah. And you mentioned in your comments there about not defining what you want. And you speak a lot about things like vision and passion and joy. Can you talk a little bit about why those things are so important and what they mean to you?
Sure. I firmly believe that if somebody just wants to exist, I'm non-judgmental. That's your business, right? I honestly don't care. If you're happy, you ain't hurting humans or animals, we're good, right? But for me, I think that I've been put on this earth for something more
Hmm.
than just making money, going to work every day, paying my taxes, being in the system. I was put on this earth for something more, and I do believe I'm capable of something more. I believe everybody's capable of something more. And so I look at certain things, and some of these things, I'm going to get a little Carl Jung on you. Some of these things are shadow things from my past, or things that weren't resolved, or things that I did when I was 17, 18, 19, 20 years old that I'm now paying the toll, not the toll, but I'm atoning for, if you would, right?
Sure.
Um, so my goal now is how can I help people, right? How can I help people? I made a crap load of money. I lost a crap load of money. And I can tell you, it wasn't the money that made me happy. It was what I was
Mm.
able to do with the money that made me happy. And I blew a lot of it. But when I'm able to go to Philadelphia and help in basically there was some awareness to the world. I live in New Hampshire. We're very sheltered up here,
Hmm.
right? I go to Philadelphia. There's 7 million people. There's
Yeah.
uh, lots of drug use and depression, and when I mean depression, not mental depression, but just a depressed market, depressed areas, right? I was in Frankfurt section. I was in what's that, Kensington, right? Doing supporting this give back to the community movement with John from the Bizzle Effect on TikTok. Follow him. Follow him on Instagram because TikTok has a problem with what he's doing. I don't understand why.
Nobody does.
No. So I knew that there was a bigger purpose. There was something else. So for me, it's what is my purpose, right? What is my vision? What am I trying to accomplish? Am I just going to wake up, work 40, 50 hours a week? You know what I mean? And weekends come, let's grab a 30 pack of beer and watch football. No, there was something more
Hmm.
to it all for me. So I had to find a reason in existence. I had my children are all raised now. And I mean, they're 20 and 22. So, they're off doing their thing. I'm not married. I'm not in a relationship. I don't care to be in a relationship. I care on how I can make this big impact before I go. Right. So in some respects, there's some Carl Jung stuff, shadow stuff where, I'm working on all these other things to ignore whatever I have, but all those things have been addressed. And now it's just, how can I make the biggest impact in humanity? Because the more that I look at it, the more messed up it is. And I know what we focus on expands. So if you go looking for it, you're going to find it. But I also understand that if you're not aware of it, that it can happen to any one of us at any given time. And when it blindsides you, it's going to hurt. Right. So I believe having a vision, what is it that you are trying to accomplish? What is your purpose? Why are you doing that? And then what is your passion? Right. Because your passion is what's going to drive your passion is the fuel. Your passion is the fuel. Right. If let's just say if I want to feed 1,000 hungry families a year at Thanksgiving, right? I'm going to do everything I can to feed those 1,000 hungry families at Thanksgiving. Right. If my goal is to open up, a facility where they can produce food that goes into vans, that goes to places where there's no homeless people that don't have any meals, like in Kensington and such like that, then that's going to drive me. All my energy is going to go into this. So what you focus on expands, right? So all my energy is going to go into that particular thing. But if you don't know what it is you want, and I got no problem with anybody want the best for themselves. You want the boat, you want the luxury life, you want
Yeah. Sure.
the yacht, the house in Costa Rica, rock on. I'm not driven by any of that. I am not driven by any of that. And I'm not judging anybody. I'm not faulting anybody. Uh, Money's not the motivator anymore, right? Helping humanity is the motivator.
Yeah. That's interesting because I've learned a similar lesson of myself along the way. I always thought that with a bigger title and more money would come satisfaction. And as I went further and further up that, you realize the next rung isn't really better than the last one. And then you get all the way to the top and you realize, you look back and you didn't accomplish the stuff that you really found was important to you. So what I've learned over time was that for me, money wasn't the asset. More money doesn't necessarily bring me any more joy or make me any happier or make me feel any more fulfilled. It's really having my time to focus on the things that I enjoy, my time to focus on the things that light me up, my time to build and mentor. Like, I enjoy the use of my time for those things. And I find the money it's a nice benefit, but it's not the thing that drives me. The impact I can have on the others around me, on the community. And that was a weird lesson to learn because I was never wired that way. I didn't grow up that way. But I learned it by basically going through that progression and realizing that the further I went, I didn't feel better. Like, it didn't make me feel better. It just continued to make me realize that something was missing.
Yeah. And what it does is the carrot that keeps you on the treadmill then becomes the paycheck. Right? Got to get that. I got to, next, work real hard. I get that promotion. Oh, that Alan Watts has a great piece. I'll send it to you after. And somebody had taken some cartoons and hand-drawn cartoons and put it to that, and it all comes down, Alan Watts says something in there. If you haven't listened to Alan Watts, he's a wonderful philosopher from the late 60s, early 70s. But he says the whole point of the dance is the dance.
Mm-hmm.
And that is, to me, life, right?
Yeah.
Life isn't a destination that I ought to end. I'm 50 years old now. I have watched a lot of people I know die, either through car accidents or through cancer and other diseases, various different reasons, right? Heart attacks. So I know how precious life is. So if you have, and goals are important, they at least get you going in that direction, right? But I'll also say that in the same breath, only when you understand deeply the goal isn't important, right? The actions that's leading you towards the goal. What are you going to do when you get there? If my goal is to make $250,000 a year as a real estate agent, I'm able to accomplish that in October. Do I stop?
Right.
Or do I keep going? What happens when you reach the goal? Oh, that's when you do your stretch goal. That's when you do more. So, if you can look at it to say, hey, listen, I hit $250,000, every dollar after that, I'm going to donate to cause that I believe in, human trafficking or families in transitions or homeless veterans or whatever it might be, then that is a whole nother level of passion that unrealized. But you gotta kind of know what it is, where you want to go, but enjoy the process of the journey, right?
Yep.
Enjoy the process of the journey. No matter, I don't get a paycheck. I haven't received a paycheck in 20 years, right? It's all whatever I kill, I eat, right? I hate to use that term like that because I know somebody will be offended in this world, but
it works.
I eat whatever I hunt. Okay. Which can be difficult, right? It can be difficult. It is difficult, right? No, there's no doubt about it. Having that consistent stream comes in. But what's the payoff, right? One, I can do anything that I want.
Right.
This one gives me the consistency, but I got to pay a price for that.
Yep. Yeah. And I talk to a lot of people that are struggling with that exact idea. They got a good W-2 and maybe it's a job they don't love, they don't hate. And it's always the concern about, well, what if I make that leap? Like, what if I bet on myself? What does that mean? I'm not going to have that guaranteed income. I'm not going to know how much I'm making. I'm not going to know I can pay my bills. And that's all true. But the flip side of that is you're going to continue to do stuff for somebody else. You're going to build the upside for them. And none of that upside comes to you. And for some people, that's great. They need the assurance, the confidence, the consistency, and that's terrific. You need to know yourself well enough to know if that's you or not. But for those of us that want to go do big things and create that impact and do important things, we have to get out of that mindset and into the mindset of, I can do a lot more if I'm in control of the outcome versus put into somebody's system and playing by their rules. And that's a tough one to get through. And one that I got a couple of friends personally, I'm working with them right now on it because they all want to do more, but not necessarily enough so to make the leap. It's, they're kind of on the fence at this point. And I tell them all the time, that's okay. You don't feel like you have to follow somebody else's path because if that's not you, it's just not you, and don't force it because then you're going to make the change and really regret it. And that's when it gets really bad for you.
Yeah. My favorite question to ask anybody when they in that particular situation is why?
Right.
Why you want to do that? Right. And I don't expect anybody. I know in all the books they say, what's your why?
Yep.
Your big why and all that other stuff. I'm not asking. I'm asking why you want to accomplish that, right? What is the driving force for accomplishing that? And I came up with this concept years ago. I call it the peace axis. And I'll break it down like this. 40 hours, somewhere along the line, somebody said 40 hours a week is the work week. So I use 40 hours a week.
Yep.
Let's use $100,000 gross commission income. Really easy math. If you want to make $100,000 gross commission income, working 40 hours a week, and you hit that, what is the price you're going to pay to go above that? Right. And so if you want to get to the 250, if you want to get to anything else, you have to understand what that sacrifice looks like. You don't, if you're not willing to do that sacrifice, then keep your peace access where it is. Enjoy your quality of life. I knew this guy years ago. His goal was to make $100,000, take 100 days off, and play 100 rounds of golf. And he had investment properties and everything, right? That's a pretty clear, definitive goal of what he wants to accomplish. That's somebody that's bringing in decent income. That's somebody that's enjoying their life. And that's somebody that is enjoying their hobby of golf. And, golf is more than just a game. It's camaraderie, right? It's networking with the people that you golf. And so if he wanted to make $200,000, then he would have to sacrifice one of these other things. So he comes out of his peace axis. He's no longer the thing that brings him peace. And I really think it's important that we find joy in most everything that we do. And because again, at any given time, our evening, going to bed tonight is not guaranteed, right? We know that. And I don't mean to sound negative. That's real. I'm a realist. Yep. And I understand that. So I appreciate the gift of now. And what do you sacrifice? I got these two sayings that I recently started to use, and both of them are 5 letters, 5 words. And the first one is the very most important one. Does this bring me joy? Right? Does it bring me joy? Because if it doesn't bring me joy, there's a 99% chance I'm not going to do it. Unless the second question is compelling, or the answer to the second question is that compelling. How much does this pay? Right? Yep. So I need to if it's paying me a lot of money, I can suck it up. You know what I mean? Not indefinitely. You tell me, hey, I need you to do this for a day. I need you to do this for a week. I need you to go on a 12-day tour, and you're going to give 24 presentations, but we're going to pay you $80,000. I'm in. Right? Yeah. I can suck that up. I'll tell you all about it because I'm going to make a lot of video. But does it bring me joy? How much does it pay? Right? If I can't answer one of those two questions, then I'm just not going to do it. I'm not interested in giving my time away for free anymore. I've done plenty of that. Right?
We all have.
I'm not going to lie. You saw my cat. I'd rather lay downstairs, work on my computer, do whatever I do, hang out on TikTok with a cat laying on me, than put myself into a situation that I don't enjoy or that I'm not getting paid for. Unless, of course, it's with you.
Well, yeah, it's different. Because it does bring you joy. Maybe it's not work related joy, but it's still a good time.
I don't know how much joy.
So one of the things we do with our team is we do this business planning exercise, and everybody goes through and looks at what they want to do in terms of production and GCI and what they want to make and all this stuff. And then what's really interesting is when they ravel it all up, we then look at, okay, well, to do that, you need to do these daily activities. You need to make 20 contacts, 30 contacts, 100 contacts, whatever their goal might be. And so we start with, okay, you've got a goal to make 100,000, why? What about that is important to you? What makes that the goal that you want? And a lot of times you kind of get some uncertain answers because everybody just thinks they're supposed to make 100,000. And then you get into, okay, well, here's the stuff you need to do. Are you willing to do that? And oftentimes that's when you get the, oh yeah, no, I'm not prepared to do that. I'll scale this back. Maybe I'll do something a little bit different. And then when you dive a little deeper into what is that going to do for you? In many cases, we find that there's not really a reason for it. It's just a matter of, it's a cool number. It sounds good. But really, in the end, I don't want to do that much. I don't want to do those things. I don't want to do that much of it. And we realize that what people really want and what they need are very different things. And to your point, to make that next step up, a lot of people aren't willing to. Like I know for myself, if you told me that I could go make $1 million a year by working 85 hours a week and taking no vacations, I would be like, I'm not interested. Thank you, but no thank you. because I'm not willing to give up all the other things to go do that, because ultimately it's not going to get me where I want to go. I enjoy my time with my family and my children and hobbies and activities and things like that. I'm not willing to dedicate my life to something like that just for the money. That doesn't get me there.
Yeah. Doesn't get me there either. So that's why the first one is, does it bring me joy? I have to, otherwise it's passionless.
Yeah. Yeah. You're just going through the motions because you
passionless.
feel obligated to.
You can pay me $30,000 an hour to sit on a factory line pressing the pedal. Eventually, it's not even, you know what I mean? I'm just going to be like, there's got to be something more.
Yeah, I'm out.
There'll be something more. I'll work for 3 months and then I'm out.
Yeah. All right, so let's talk a little bit about you and your success. So when you look back at all the things you've done, whether it's in real estate sales or video or coaching or training, what do you feel like has been the most important thing to your success? Is there a particular habit, a trait, a mindset, a mentor, something you can point to that was really critical or key to getting you to the point that you're at and helping you along the way?
Yeah, there's several things, but I think this one, I mean, I had a lot of help from many different people, met a lot of great people. I named a couple of them. Michael Gerber, I got to sit with for 2 days and go over lots of good things. But I think from talking to people that are uberly successful, like Michael Gerber, like Kevin Harrington, like Fred Newcomb, and those kind of people, I think the most important thing is not only the gift of vision, right, or having that vision. What is it that you truly want to accomplish? And Michael Gerber said, whatever you're going to do, be revolutionary. That was his last words to me. As I watched him drive off, get into the Uber and drive off in Carlsbad. Whatever you're going to do, whatever you do, be revolutionary. And I'll never forget that. But the thing is, in order to be revolutionary, you have to be willing to be alone. And until you find the right people.
Yep.
You have to be willing to prune and cut. And there's a difference between being alone and being lonely. Right. So that is some mental stuff that people will have to work themselves through. But the willingness to walk away from people for the greater good of your vision, I think, and that includes not listening to what people below you are saying, that the criticism. And like somebody I had talked to you a little bit earlier before we went live, that I had posted a Ryan Serhant paragraph in a group, and some people criticized it. And I'm like, I'm sorry, what's the name of your book?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because I think everybody knows who he is.
Yeah.
I think he has had an immense amount of, he is that fraction of a percent of people that have that mega stardom, mega success.
Yep.
But when you read that paragraph, he was broke. He had anxiety. He was scared. He didn't know how he was going to pay his next month's rent. And he laid it all on the line and went all in, and he sold his first house, his first $1 million place, $2.2 million place. And that is what he said, this is where I need to be. Right. So I think you need to have the uncanny ability to walk away from the normies and shut off all that noise, even if that means being alone, because I can promise you that the higher you go up the pyramid, the ladder, whatever cliche we want to use, the people on that next level are excellent people that want to see you win and will help you win. Right. But there's a whole bunch of hands trying to pull you back down.
Exactly.
Right? And that, again, is some shadow stuff. They say they want to see you win, but they don't want to see you win because then they feel bad about themselves because they weren't able to cross over and do it. Right. So I think in order to be successful, you have to, and this has nothing to do with building a company. This has nothing to do with building an app. This has nothing to do with anything other. Even if you're just a regular real estate agent, there's millions of you. If you look in your market, there's thousands, and in some market, 10,000s of you. If you want to go door knocking and you think that's going to work and you're going to go door knocking, I'm going to have a postcard and it's going to have a QR code that goes to a video that says, hey, thanks for watching the video on Wynwood Place. Then go do it. Don't let anybody tell you not to. Just because other people won't do it, just because other people are scared, don't let other people's opinions and fears project upon you. Do not, it's all permission. Do not give them permission to stick to you. I think that would probably be.
Yeah, don't play small for fear that it's going to offend or bother the people around you, because then if that's the case, they're not the right people around you, and it's time to go find the new tribe. And I love the analogy of there's always people above you or further along the path that'll be happy to reach out a hand and help pull you up. But at the same time, there's people where you are or maybe below where you are that are always willing to reach up and grab your ankle and pull you back down because they don't necessarily want to see you be successful, because that means they weren't. You did something they didn't. And many people lack the awareness to realize the difference between you reaching that next level and them not is that you were the one willing to do the work and they weren't. And that's okay, because maybe they either didn't want to be at that next level or maybe they weren't capable of reaching that next level, but holding you back does nobody any good.
No. And evolve, man. You really have to evolve. I think the name of my next book, it was going to be called The Journey. But I think there was some toxicity to that book, and it was about a snub of my my ex-girlfriend who was toxic and stuff like that. But she no longer will be in my book because I've healed from that. But I think the name of my new book, I wrote it down the other day, was Tie Your Shoes. Because as you're going up this ladder, people are going to be pulling at you. You got to make sure your shoes are tight, right? Make sure your shoes are tight and they're not pulling them off. Don't wear sandals.
Yeah,
make
that's
sure
a good
your
analogy.
shoes are tight. And again, I don't fault anybody and I will not judge anybody for the positions they are in their life. Be the best version of yourself. And, if I may be so bold, you're the only person that you should be trying to impress. You're the only person that matters. Be selfish, love yourself, and don't care about anybody else's opinion of what you're doing or anything else like that. Look at all the greats. People thought they were crazy. Right? People thought Steve Jobs was crazy. Now, I'm not saying these are great humans. I'm not even saying that they were the great empaths or anything else like that. They did something revolutionary, despite people telling them no, or despite not having the funds, despite not whatever the situation might be. Don't listen to those other people's opinions.
Yeah, and if people aren't tearing you down, you're not doing something right. So let them bring it, because that just shows that they see what you're doing, and whether they like it or not, they're obviously scared of what you've been able to accomplish. So that's usually a good sign.
Right. There's a saying that everybody likes to go, and they credit Steve Jobs for saying that, even though there's some debate whether he actually said it. And I don't agree with this saying. I agree with it in some part. If you want to make everybody happy, sell ice cream, but you can't, because there's diabetics. I'm type 2, right? I can't eat regular ice cream, so not going to make me happy. You want to make me happy? Come out with good sugar-free stuff. You got lactose intolerant people, right? You got vegans. So if you're going to sell ice cream, you have to, and please everybody, then you have to have diabetic ice cream, lactose-free ice cream, keto ice cream, right? That stuff tastes horrible. Sherbets and these, it's like you can't even please everybody selling ice cream anymore. So you do you. If you're going to make ice cream, make the best damn ice cream. Exactly.
Right? And do not try to make everybody happy, because you'll never be able to do it, and you'll never win because of it.
You will tear yourself apart trying to.
All right. So before we wrap up, Johnny Mo, what is the one piece of advice you wish somebody had given you when you started off on this journey into and through real estate?
You ready?
I'm ready. Hit me with it.
Run your financial business separate from your personal business. Separate your personal and business finances. Follow Michael Mikowicz, the Profit First model.
Yep.
Pay your tax, everything financial literacy and discipline. Because what will happen, I think, and this happens, I've helped dozens, hundreds of agents get through tax payments and back taxes and stuff like that. Myself too, with over 100,000. Was you will mind F yourself, right? I think it's Sean Puffy Combs says it in Get Him to the Greek. Right, you got to mind F the person, right?
Yep.
And that's how you mind them, right? You will mind F yourself if that commission check hits your account and you look at it and you're like, oh, that's $7,500. I'm going to book that trip. I'm going to pay the kids' tuition. I'm going to get myself a new pair of Balenciaga. No, we're not getting those. I'm going to get myself a new pair of Birkenstocks, right?
There we go.
But the truth is, you don't have $7,500.
No.
Because out of that $7,500, 20% should be dedicated to the man, because he ain't going away. Your business, your 20% organized crime business partner called Uncle Sam, the IRS, is not ever going away.
No, he always
got to account for. Always gets paid. You got to account for your business expenses, and that should be 15, 20%. You should put some money away for savings, rainy day, something like that, and then you get what's left. I hate to use the person's name that I'm about to say because I think he gives some good advice. I'm just not a big fan. But Grant Cardone says, I buy whatever I want if it's in my 40%. If it's not in my 40% and I can't afford it, I just go make more money so my 40% is bigger. And I agree with that. You should be, of that money that you make, 40 to 50% of that is yours. So when you're building your business budgets, you should be taking that into consideration. If you want to net $100,000 a year, because that's going to give you the quality of life you want, it's going to give you the savings goals that you want, it's going to give you the trajectory that you want, then you have to say, okay, in order for me to get $100,000, it's going to cost me $200,000 to make. Out of that $200,000, I got these things that need to be accounted for. So every time you get a check, you should have a little spreadsheet. You type that $7,500 in there, and you got your calculations, and you hit enter. It goes. That's it. It's really that simple. Okay, I'm going to put $1,500 into this account. I'm going to put $1,000 into this account. And I'm going to put $500 into this account, and then the rest I'm putting into my personal account.
Yep.
And be disciplined. So if the one piece of advice I can give to anybody is, and I'm 50, I still struggle with this stuff. It just never seems like there is enough. And I know people feel that too. Get your financial house in order. Run your business finances like a business. Separate the two, because you aren't. The problem is Rich Dad Poor Dad breaks everything down into 4 quadrants, right? The employee, the self-employed, the business owner, and the investor. Real estate agents, the majority of them think they own a business or run a business, and they don't. They're self-employed, right? They're self-employed. They go away, the income stops. That's self-employment, right? A business, you can go away, and the operation still happens and makes money, and everybody's still employed because people have clear defined roles. What happens is so many people, the money comes into their account, and they just do everything out of one account, and they don't take these other things into consideration. You've got to understand business finances.
Yep. Yeah, 100%. That makes a big difference, because ultimately, if the business isn't making money because you're not doing a good enough job tracking and managing it, that means you're not making any money, in which case you're doing all this thing for nothing. And I can't tell you the number of times I've heard from agents or those people that are self-employed, and they've got this big fat tax bill, and they're scrambling to try to close some transactions or close some deals because they need to pay it because they don't have it because they kind of forgot taxes are due. So, yeah, the profit first model is a good one. But even to your point, if you can just be disciplined and organized and keep it separate, don't live off every dime that comes in, then you could be okay.
Yeah, 100%. To me, I think that's the biggest struggle, because they don't teach this stuff in school, and they should.
No, they don't. Right? And they certainly don't teach it in the real estate classes.
Not at all. That's just they just want your check to get in across the threshold.
All right, Johnny Mo, before we go, if people want to learn more about you or explore my town, what are the best ways for them to get in touch with you?
You can go to exploremytown.com or partnerwithmytown.com. Those are both sites for Explore My Town. You can look me up on social media. It's just look up Johnny Mo, at Johnny Mo, or I am Johnny Mo. You can also go to iamjohnnymo.com. I know it sounds like a hooky website, but that's what was available. So for domains. And I don't use my last name too often because it's too hard to spell. Johnny Mo, if you can't figure that one out, peace out.
Yeah. Awesome.
Right? So, go to Explore My Town, Partner with My Town, or I am Johnny Mo. You'll find me.
Love it. Well, really appreciate the time today, Johnny Mo.
I appreciate you having me.